So today was a very important day for Bernie Sanders. He scored the endorsement of Pramila Jayapal. Now, if you haven't heard of Jayapal, she's a member of the House of Representatives. But her value, her endorsement means so much more than that for a whole variety of reasons. The biggest reason overall is that Jayapal is, like Bernie Sanders, a champion for Medicare for all. In the House of Representatives, she's one of the people leading the charge. And so with Bernie Sanders being one of the people leading the charge in the Senate, their cooperation, her endorsing Bernie, is a solid sign that people who believe in Medicare for all are going with Bernie Sanders. Now, the only other person who's even somewhat kind of maybe leaning towards Medicare for all is Elizabeth Warren. And many people have rightly criticized her Medicare for all plan for lacking the decisiveness that you see from Bernie's. And that's the other crucial factor here. Elizabeth Warren was seen as a potential target for Jayapal's endorsement. That while AOC and Tlaib and Omar, went with Bernie, and that wasn't too much of a surprise, Jayapal was seen as sort of a wild card. And that her endorsement could be a sign, a bellwether of who was getting those sort of endorsements between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, who was going to be the quote-unquote progressive candidate that might go into the final stages of this primary to face someone like Joe Biden. Was it going to be Bernie or was it going to be Warren? And what we're seeing is that more and more people are lining up behind Bernie Sanders. Of course, most of the squad is backing Bernie. Only Ayanna Pressley is backing Elizabeth Warren. And the Progressive Caucus is largely lining up behind Bernie. The leadership, both chairs of the caucus, the vice chair, many of the members are lining up behind Bernie. And Jayapal is one of those caucus chairs. And I think that when you have Jayapal and you have Pocan from Wisconsin, you have Khanna, you have AOC and Tlaib and Omar, what it's showing is that Bernie Sanders is becoming the locus, the focal point for progressive energy in the House of Representatives and in many of the movements. Bernie Sanders has been scoring tons of crucial endorsements, that these sorts of folks are willing to champion him as the person that's going to drive America in a progressive direction. It also helps that they bring expertise in various areas. Again, Jayapal is a champion of Medicare for all, and because of that, she's going to take a key healthcare policy role on Bernie Sanders' campaign. So this is another sign that Warren's campaign hasn't been going well. Warren, for a time, looked to be eclipsing Bernie Sanders. In fact, there was a time where she was neck and neck with Joe Biden earlier in 2019. But she made a couple crucial mistakes. She backed off on a truly committed path towards Medicare for all. She started intertwining herself increasingly with people from Clinton's old team. And she attacked one of her friends using lies and smears. When you do all of those things, it demonstrates to progressives that you're less invested in ensuring that either you or Bernie Sanders wins and more invested at your personal power and your personal privilege above the movements. People have started noting this more and more. Why has Elizabeth Warren dug up lies against Bernie Sanders, but she won't attack Joe Biden on his Social Security cuts or on his bankruptcy record? Why won't she do that? Does she want to be Joe Biden's VP? We don't know. But what progressives in Congress and out of Congress are increasingly seeing is that it's Bernie Sanders that's the unity candidate for the left, for the broad center left and left of the Democratic Party to face against Joe Biden and then eventually against Donald Trump. And it's also crucial to note that most of these high-profile endorsements come from women and specifically racialized women. AOC, Tlaib, Omar, Jayapal, whether they were born in the United States or they come from abroad, they have a racialized and in some cases immigrant experience, which shows that Bernie Sanders isn't just all about the bros, quote unquote, that Bernie is generating a diversity of support, a diversity of viewpoints, a diversity of experiences, a diversity of identities, which shows that he's the one building the broad Democratic coalition in this election. It's not Elizabeth Warren. It's not Joe Biden. It's Bernie Sanders that's building that coalition. And all of this is so important at this stage because we have to start looking at the math. And Elizabeth Warren, her attacks aside, which I think have lowered people's viewpoint of her in many, many ways, but those aside, her numbers are lower than Bernie Sanders in most polls. And if we want to defeat Joe Biden, especially in those states where Elizabeth Warren may not hit the 15% threshold to even get a single delegate, Warren supporters need to move to Bernie Sanders if they want a progressive option. That's why all of these progressive congresspeople, all of these progressive organizations like the Sunrise Movement, they're moving to Bernie specifically because he's a more consistent and credible champion of the left than Elizabeth Warren. And Bernie Sanders is poised to defeat Joe Biden and defeat Donald Trump. So again, Elizabeth Warren, maybe she thought she could score a knockout blow by goading Bernie Sanders into a fight on the stage. But time and time again, people, movements, they're lining up behind Bernie. This Jayapal endorsement for Bernie could, without hyperbole, be the knockout blow to Elizabeth Warren's campaign.